Welcome back to the channel, and today we're talking Transformers, and we're talking Bumblebee the movie, concept art. Yes, it's that time once again where concept art begins to appear online now that the movie has been released, and I always find it very interesting to see the concept art because you get an idea of what inspired the movie and also what concept art didn't make the movie at all. Now I want to get your views and opinions in the comment section below of the concept art which you see today, and the concept art comes from Joshua Viers, and I will link to his official Instagram account in the description of this video, so make sure you go and give him a follow. But before we get into the concept art, I want to make sure you are subscribed to the channel with the notification bell turned on so you stay up to date with all my Transformers content. So Joshua Viers, he produced plenty of concept art for Bumblebee the movie, and we're going to check out his designs. And he's produced concept art for Marvel, DC, 20th Century Fox, and of course Paramount Pictures. So let's take a look. Okay, so first off we have a Decepticon design by Joshua for Bumblebee the movie, and this is very interesting because he doesn't name the Decepticon and who this was supposed to be, but take a good look. Does that remind you of a G1 Decepticon that was supposed to be in Bumblebee the movie, which didn't really look like that Decepticon in the end? Worked it out yet? This to me looks very much like Blitzwing. Now yes, the colour scheme is still not right, but he does have the red visor which Blitzwing had in G1, and I never understood why they didn't put that in for Decepticon Blitzwing, considering Travis Knight wanted to stay true to G1, and I do still think there's more than meets the eye with the reasoning of why Blitzwing doesn't look like Blitzwing. But this would have worked very well, this head sculpt. In fact, what I would have done is I would have kept the head sculpt that we saw in the final cut of the movie, but I would have had this red visor, because I think then everybody would have thought that's Blitzwing and would have made no comparisons to Decepticon's Starscream. Now as part of this post there is a second shot of this concept art, and it's slightly closer up, and you can see the undertone of what we saw for the final version of Blitzwing in Bumblebee the movie, because if you look past the visor then you can see that face construction taking shape, but the visor does make a huge difference, so I would have left it in. That's what I would have done. When going through that design process, I would have said that's an important part if we're using Decepticon Blitzwing. Now the head sculpt looks kind of trooper-ish, looks like he's wearing some sort of helmet, so I'm not entirely sold on that, but also as well kind of looks more like a robot you'd see in Pacific Rim. And Joshua did say in a note on this post that the Transformers aesthetic never really resonated with him, so maybe he's implying there that although this was the concept art he came up with, maybe it didn't quite work for a Transformer. But I've got to say that there are elements of this concept art that work for me, and I'm surprised that if you chose to use Blitzwing you didn't go with them in the final cut of the movie. But I guess I want to get your views and opinions on this. What an interesting way to start reviewing this concept art, by having this concept first, because the big debate for this Transformers movie for quite a long time was whether or not it was Decepticon Starscream that was chasing Bumblebee. It ended up being Blitzwing, and then the debate rumbled on why Blitzwing didn't look like G1 Blitzwing, when Travis Knight said that there was a lot of focus on the Transformers looking like their G1 counterpart. So what do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. Would you have stuck with what we got as the final design of Blitzwing, or would you have incorporated some of Joshua's design? I want to get your views and opinions. But let's move on. Next up we have another Decepticon design, and much like the previous concept, you can see where these inspired the final designs for the movie. This time it reminds me of Decepticon Dropkick, and Joshua Viers said this: "Here's another Decepticon for Bumblebee the movie. I tried pushing more of a Cyclops head. One eye is scarier than two." Now I'll let you be the judge of that, but you can see the triple changer about this concept because you can see the muscle car and also the propellers of the helicopter alt mode. So this has Decepticon Dropkick written all over it. However, much like the previous concept, this head sculpt wasn't taken forward. Yes, parts of it was, but not the completed design. And this brings me to another question which I want to ask you guys, because the concept art, to me, looks much more alien. But by the time we get to the big screen and the movie is released, the head sculpts tend to look much more humanized. Now that may be because they want to bring more emotion to these characters, but do you like it? Or do you prefer something like this? Let me know, again, in the comments below. So here is a third Decepticon, and this one actually has a name against it, Ranger. Now I guess at this point of the design process, Decepticon names had not been defined because Ranger never made the film, but again, this clearly inspired a final Decepticon that did make the movie in Decepticon Shatter. Now Josh said with this design, I was trying to come up with a Decepticon that looked like he could be fast, and it definitely looks that way, but it didn't end up being a male Decepticon. It ended up being a female Decepticon because you see the muscle car and it is much more leggy, much more taller, and that's what Shatter looked like in comparison to Dropkick, and the head sculpt does represent what we saw too in the final cut of the film. So I think that Josh did provide the foundation of Blitzwing, of Decepticon Dropkick, and Decepticon Shatter. So that is very cool to see. Definitely elements were taken from all three of these concepts. So now we've seen 3 Decepticon concept designs. I think it's about time we saw an Autobot. So let's take a look at the star himself, Bumblebee. Now the note on this is rough battle mask and helmet concept for Bumblebee. Doesn't really look too much like a battle mask at this stage, but you can clearly see the helmet, and I think this would be much more suited to the Bayverse, and I can see parts of this that they took forward and they did work upon, but I think what they did was they simplified this design and they made more focus on the eyes of Bumblebee, because I feel like what you got with that final design, the eyes really draw you in. They play a lot on the emotion of those eyes, and that is how you really do captivate a robot that can't speak. Focus on the eyes. So I can see that they did, take this to a degree, but it was much more simplified and made more family and kid friendly. And one interesting comment that I did notice on this concept was he looks scary. So I don't think Travis Knight would want to go for that with Bumblebee, and that's why they simplified it and reduced it down. But Josh did progress this concept, and this is where it moved to. So here is the progression, and it definitely looks much more like what we got in the final outcome of the movie, albeit I would say that it still doesn't quite look family and kid friendly. He looks much more like a trooper than a transformer, and I think that again with the adjustment to this, it was to simplify it, make the eyes bigger, and even with the battle mask, I think that Travis Knight had a vision that that battle mask was going to look like a bee, and the eyes of the bee were very prominent. And I remember seeing the trailer and thinking the battle mask looked like a bumblebee. This, yes, it does hold resemblance to that, but I don't get that bumblebee feel about it. So again, I think that the process was to reduce, simplify, and enhance the eyes, and that is how we got to Bumblebee that we see in the movie. So one final design to talk about, and actually there's quite a few concept arts for this, because the note on this one is quick Decepticon head concepts for Bumblebee movie. The director had some specific ideas that were fun to play with, and you see this one initially, And I do think this is what Dropkick became. So we saw the previous look at what I thought was going to be Dropkick, but I did mention that the head sculpt didn't quite fit. But this time I can see Dropkick in this head sculpt, and it also kind of looks a bit like Megatron that we had from Transformers The Last Night, and also a bit of Barricade from Transformers The Last Night. But the Mouthpiece definitely looks like Dropkick. And if we go through the images of this post, you start to see the focus on that Mouthpiece. And yes, again, the color scheme is slightly different because we saw the green with Dropkick in the end when he spoke, but you can see what Travis Knight was looking for, and Josh has really gone to work and, you know, made that vision that Travis Knight wanted come together with this initial concept art. So as you see, quite a lot of focus on the Mouthpiece as these progress, and I think that was all to do with what we actually got in the final design for Dropkick. And I really loved the way that his mouth was animated. I thought that looked fantastic. I thought it looked better than what we've had before, and it was different to what we get normally with Decepticons. So I dig these sort of things when they're a bit different. I dig that, you know, the concept artist went a little bit out there, and I kind of hope that we get more of this with Decepticon designs in the future, as opposed to just having, you know, a mouth. So there you go. That is all the concept art that I'm going to look at today. But if you've got concept art that you want me to talk about or look over, send me it, tweet me it, you know, give me a link in the comment section and I will go and check it out. But what are your feelings towards this concept art? Do you think some of the concepts should have been taken forward as they were? Like, for example, when I talked about the visor with Blitzwing, should that have gone forward? It didn't, but should it? What about with Bumblebee, where he looked like he had more of an aged look? Would you prefer that, or did you like the final design? I want to get your views and opinions in the comment section below, and make sure, once again, you go and support the concept artist. His Instagram is Concept by Josh. Give him a follow, and hopefully he'll be posting more concepts very soon for us to talk about. So all that's left to be said is this has been the concept art for Bumblebee the movie. I expect more concept art to be coming out soon from different places, and we will talk about them on the channel. But what is your favourite concept that you saw in this video? And all that's left to be said is please rate, comment and subscribe. This is Delzinski signing out.